praise your name, most high and awesome God, and lift my hands unto you. You save my soul, on a rugged tree. Now I praise you, and serve you, Lord, throughout eternity.
All right, let's make a list of all the terrible political leaders in world history. Okay, maybe you think we don't have enough time for that. How about all the terrible political leaders in the world right now, just right now? Not in world history, but just right now. Okay, maybe we don't have enough time for that. Okay, maybe all the terrible political leaders just right now in our own country. Do we have a time to make a list of those? Maybe not. Okay, so there are a lot of terrible political leaders. Terrible is, I guess, in the eye of the beholder, but let's say political leaders that have as their main aim holding on to their own power, maybe enlarging their pocketbook, their own sphere of influence, not really concerned so much about the welfare of people or the welfare of the country that they serve. That has always been the case. You know that, right? And I don't have any fear that if someone watches this recording in a year or 2 or 10, that things will have changed in that way at all. The names will have changed, perhaps. They don't always change as quickly as you think they will. Maybe the names will have changed, but the character of prominent political leaders often will not. That was the case in ancient Israel. I mean, you don't have to read much into the books of Kings to recognize they had some terrible political leaders. I mean, it is much, much more common when you read the books of Kings in the Old Testament that you will run across the phrase or the evaluation from the writer of the book of Kings that this king was terrible because he did not do what was right in his own eyes. You'll run across that evaluation much more commonly than you would run across the evaluation, this king did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, or this king was a good king. It sometimes happens, Hezekiah sort of, Josiah. You get some good kings in the book of Kings. You don't get many. You don't get many. Even in, let's just take America, for example. If we think about the history of presidents and we pick out, we don't even have to name names here, but we pick out the person that we think was the greatest president in the history of America. I don't think I'll be bursting any bubbles to say that person was a hopeless sinner. That person had problems. Again, I'm not going to name any names, but let me just say, think of the most sainted, most wonderful person in American history, the person that the most number of people think, well, that guy had it together, or that lady had it together. If we could aspire to be like that person, boy, we would be better than we are. And that was a saint. That person's a hopeless sinner. Isaiah 11 is a passage about a future political leader. I hesitate just a little bit to say political, but he's a king. He's a king, so political leader, but a leader in all kinds of ways, beyond politics as well. This is the passage about the shoot from the trunk or the stump of Jesse. This is Isaiah 11, verse 1. A shoot shall come out from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. He shall delight in the fear of the Lord. this shoot from the stump of Jesse. You remember who Jesse was? Jesse is the father of King David. If you read 1 Samuel 16, that's the chapter where Samuel goes to Jesse's house and finds David and anoints him as king. Jesse is the father of David. So when we think about Jesse, we think about David. And the whole reason for talking about Jesse in Isaiah 11 is because David was his son, and David became the greatest king in Israel's history. Now let me just point out, he was a hopeless sinner, right? Hopeless is maybe the wrong word. He had a hope because God was willing to save him, but you understand what I mean by that. David was the greatest king. We think about Jesse, we think about David. When we think about the shoot from the stump of Jesse, we're thinking about a coming king who will be like David, because David himself was a shoot from the stump of Jesse. If we're thinking about the house of Jesse like a family tree, then David was a shoot out of that stump. And we are looking forward to another shoot from the stump. Now, let me just point out that at the time that Isaiah is speaking this prophecy, there was already a descendant of Jesse on the throne. I don't know exactly who it was. I suspect it was Ahaz. Ahaz was king back in like chapter 7, so he's probably still king. Later on in the book of Isaiah, we'll get another king who's named Hezekiah, so it could possibly be Hezekiah already here in chapter 11, but I think it's probably Ahaz. Hezekiah was thought of mostly as a good king. Ahaz was thought of mostly as not a good king. At the time that Isaiah was making the prophecy, there was already a descendant of Jesse on the throne over Judah. And Isaiah is saying, I think, by making this prophecy, that guy is not the kind of king that God wants. Even though he is descended from Jesse, he is not the ideal king that we have been looking for. There are a lot of terrible political leaders. We are looking for an ideal political leader. Now, according to God's purposes, that ideal king is going to be descended from Jesse. He is going to be a shoot from the stump of Jesse, but he's going to be a lot better than that guy, because the Spirit of the Lord is going to rest on this one, on this shoot from the stump of Jesse. And in his days, when this new king comes, when this new David reigns over God's people, I will tell you what it will be like. He will judge the poor in verse 4, which does not mean like bring judgment against the poor, but bring judgment for the poor. The idea is that the poor are usually not the people who get justice because they don't have any money. They can't, hire the best lawyers. They can't pay the bribes and all that stuff that the rich can do. But this king is not going to take bribes. This king is not going to listen to the best lawyers, twist the law. He is going to bring justice for the poor. He shall decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. The hope that we have is that the wicked will not rule anymore, but the ideal king will bring judgment against the wicked. Evil will be done away with, and there will be peace. Verse 6. The wolf shall live with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The wolf will dwell with the lamb. Do we really expect the wolf to dwell with the lamb? Is he talking about literal wolves and literal lambs? I'll be honest, I do not know. I do not know exactly how to interpret this vision. It sort of sounds to me like the Garden of Eden, where I imagine wolves were not eating lambs, but eating beside the lambs, eating the grass. I mean, as it goes on to say in Isaiah 11 that verse 7, the cow and the bear shall graze. In other words, the bear will not eat the cow, but the bear will eat beside the cow. Where at the end of verse 7, the lion shall eat straw like an ox. Sort of sounds to me like the situation in the Garden of Eden, like this vision of the future is going back to the ideal time in the past when God dwelt among his people in this intimate and wonderful setting of the Garden of Eden. I don't know if Isaiah thinks we're really going to live in a time like that, or if the wolf and the lamb, if these animals are mere metaphors or symbols for the time of peace that Isaiah envisions when the shoot from the stump of Jesse comes. I do know that Isaiah mentions these same sorts of things later in his book. In Isaiah 65, the very last verse of Isaiah 65, the wolf and the lamb shall feed together, the lion shall eat straw like an ox. This is the vision in Isaiah 65 that starts in verse 17 that explicitly says it's a vision of the new heavens and new earth. I'm not sure exactly how we should interpret that in light of Isaiah 11 or Isaiah 11 in terms of Isaiah 65, but I will say they are linked in the wolf and the lamb eating together. Some of the language is the same. I see here in Isaiah 11 a vision of a coming king, a descendant of Jesse. Notice, by the way, that it's a shoot from the stump of Jesse. What does the word stump make you think? The tree has been cut down. So it's not just another descendant of David through the line of kings, but the tree has been cut down. And then here comes a shoot out the side of that stump, which if you've ever chopped down a tree, you know how that works. And this stump, this shoot from the stump of Jesse, this new king, this new David, he is going to bring peace. He is going to bring justice. And he will reign over God's kingdom. Now, once again, I have the question, have we already seen the fulfillment of this passage, or are we looking forward to the fulfillment of the passage? Let me remind you of this idea of the already not yet. Maybe, I think some prophecies in the Old Testament do apply with this concept of the already not yet. They have already begun to be fulfilled, but they have not yet had a complete fulfillment. Maybe that's the way to understand Isaiah 11. I think most people, most Christians, as we read Isaiah 11, we think, well, this is Jesus, who has established his kingdom in the church. He is reigning over his people right now. He's at the right hand of God. He has ascended on high. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, he says in Matthew 28:18. Some of this has been fulfilled, but do we really see now the wolf lying down with the lamb? Well, not in any literal sense. I have heard people say that applies to people, that there are people that are like wolves and there are people that are like lambs, and those people come together in the church. Do you think that makes sense? Does that mean that in Isaiah 65 verses 17 and following, that when the wolf and the lamb lie down together in the new heaven and new earth, we're already sort of living in the new heaven and new earth? Or is it something that we look forward to, that Jesus has come and established his kingdom and we're a part of that kingdom, but it has not yet, it's already begun to be fulfilled, but not yet completely fulfilled, and we look forward to the time where we are going to see wolves and lambs lying down together because there's so much peace, and you're going to be able to send your kids to go out and play with the rattlesnakes because those rattlesnakes are going to be peaceful now, according to Isaiah 11. It's going to be like the Garden of Eden. You know, the vision of the future, what I think is the future, in a Revelation 21 and 22, a lot like the Garden of Eden there. So has this already been fulfilled? Is it going to be fulfilled? Is this a description of what life is like now? Is it a description of what life will be like? I think no matter how you slice those particular issues, from a Christian perspective, we should say that the shoot from the stump of Jesse has in fact come. And so at the very least, part of this vision in Isaiah 11 has begun to be fulfilled in us through Christ. And once again, let me remind you, it's a vision of peace and justice. So in a sense, we have a role to play in the fulfillment of Isaiah 11. Peace and justice.
I praise your name, I praise your name, most high and awesome God, most high and awesome God, and lift my hands, unto you, you save my soul, on a rugged tree, now I praise you, and serve you, Lord, throughout eternity.